just to give you guys a little bit of background on this information, I had put a call in to the sheriff's department in Hood County about a sexual abuse crime, which I forwarded the testimony of the victim, the fact that her mother knew about the crime, and that it was from her father that did it, that lived under their jurisdiction. And I had also made another report that same day regarding the same thing in Louisville. And the individual that came out from Louisville, a very nice guy, brought up a very important point, which is about a mandated reporter. Now, in the state of Texas, if you know about a child sex abuse crime, you must report it. It's a law, a very reasonable and good law, right? And when I'm talking to this investigator from the district attorney's office in Hood County, she overlooks a very important aspect of the case immediately after calling me back very quickly. And so all of those things are red flags in this investigation. And oftentimes we will see people in her position working on behalf of a group embedded within law enforcement that is there to cover up crimes, particularly as it pertains to particular bloodlines. And lo and behold, the victim does have a family tie into the department and many others connected to this specific group. And I want to be very clear about that, and you will hear me discuss some of these things here, because when we first reported the crime, this was in Collin County, and they covered it up. I actively worked with federal law enforcement. Of course, I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I worked with them on this case, and they bullied these people out of their department, and this was all observed, and it's coming back full circle now. Of course, Sheriff Skinner is currently under investigation. His jail and his dealings with certain inmates has come to the attention of the Texas Rangers in one specific incident, and it's going to lead them back here when they start to really dig in to what's going on, particularly as this information becomes more public and under their kind of magnifying glass there. And so the bottom line, this is an egregious act that has happened to an individual throughout her life, and the DA agrees with me that, well, if a victim is raped by her father when she's 39, the odds of it being a recurring theme, often since childhood, really the statistics raise in that area so much, because this is the pattern that we see. And clearly Alexia is suffering from dissociative identity disorder when it comes to this, because the trauma was so great that she has compartmented aspects of her psyche, and her mom and others have been handling her, and I've been actively watching this. And so it looks like we've got somebody in the DA's office there to cover up for that. I'm not going to say anything beyond that, but the nature of the callback so quickly, the questions that she sidestepped and didn't answer, all point in that direction right now. And, this is a hole they're going to have to dig themselves out of. We don't have the burden of proof on this. In this case, it's the easy one. If it goes to the Fed, a prosecutor, they'll have that burden of proof if these guys actually want to take it to trial. And so, this is where we are with this. And I'm just going to go ahead and let this play, but listen to this. Keep in mind who this is, and note that she didn't ask me about a mandated reporter after she agreed to the fact that this is something that has most likely been going on since the victim's childhood. Now, why would an investigator from a DA's office ignore that question and not even ask me for the mother's information? I would like to thank Valerie, because just her presence has escalated this investigation to a much higher level right off the bat after I acquired this information. And so that's fantastic.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, Katie?
Yes.
You're with the District Attorney's Office in Hood County. What's your position there?
I'm an investigator, and I investigate sexual abuse.
Okay. Well, this is perfect. I have been deeply embedded in been an undercover investigation regarding child sex abuse as it pertains to different factions, primarily embedded within law enforcement. I'm happy to, and I understand that this is a very convoluted issue, and it's a very serious issue as well. And some of the work that I've done publicly has been very well received and has resulted in arrests with collaboration of other individuals that I've been blessed enough to work with, Katie, and that would include a gentleman who was over the child exploitation unit in Louisville, Texas, who originally arrested the girl in the closet. You may have seen that case. I'm sure you probably have, given your respective field. Are you familiar with that case?
No, I'm not.
Well, if you just type in "girl in the closet" and you'll see all that stuff from Dallas Morning News and all the rest of it. But just cut to the chase. I specifically had mentioned that we knew that they were putting people in charge of child exploitation crimes that were actively involved in child exploitation, Katie. And he was actually, known as a pillar of the community previously. Had won all these awards, was part of your favorite secret handshake club that we all know about out there.
That's the truth.
And
we saw that these guys were embedded with a faction of corrupt Freemasons. Specifically, they, were exploiting children. And, the bottom line is this is heinous and egregious, and we caught them doing it, okay?
He was arrested on 8 counts of aggravated sexual assault for, buying an apartment, getting an apartment for one of his victims that he was sent to investigate, picking her up at school in a police car, and abusing her in really what amounts to a ritualistic fashion that we often see associated with these cases. And I don't know how familiar you are with that, but I can bring you up to speed on that stuff if you're open to it. And so I need you to understand that I'm a professional in my respective field, and I'm forwarding this information to you of a very serious nature. And so the information concerns the victim, Alexia Davis. I'm going to let you go ahead and get your pen and paper ready if you want to take this information down.
Go ahead, I'm ready, sir.
It's Alexia Davis, and she is 92476. Okay? I'm going to have you contact her to get the information about her father's name and all the rest of it. What I will furnish you are recordings of her talking about the rape, of her talking about how her mother seemed to act like this was something that was out of character for her father, and so did the victim. Of course, this is very indicative of the trauma, the symptoms of the trauma when the dissociation occurs. Are you familiar with how this works?
How what works specifically?
Well, when we deal with the compartmented aspects of people's psyche that are caused by trauma, oftentimes they will not have a recollection of the event.
Yes, sir. I'm fully aware. I've been doing this for 8 years.
Okay. We're dealing with that in the case of Alexia. And so she and I do have an intimate relationship. I've known her since high school, and I am not a law enforcement officer, okay? And so, the bottom line is she displays that very well, and, for her mother to cover up the crime and not so much necessarily cover it up but not report it is a huge red flag, I think, for anybody in law enforcement or from an investigative standpoint that's objective about this. Some people may just want to forgive that person, and it could go a lot of different ways, and these are some of the best people I've ever met, and this is the reason that I'm doing this. Her mom is a great gal. Alex is a great gal, okay? I love these people dearly. We're in a bit of a conflict right now because of my position on this, but what I need you to know is that when I first forwarded this information to a law enforcement agency, I did so while I had been inserted into the Collin County Detention Facility after being involved in an investigation that's beyond the scope of this conversation that included a man named Frank Eric Dockery. Go ahead and write that down.
Now, guys, that's the truth. And what had happened there, and this is interesting part of the testimony because I had been working with another asset in the field, and Alexia came to me right after we had put our hooks into their office through this operation that I'm referencing there because they were trying to set us up. And it was very, very bad. They were using electronic harassment equipment on us. And lo and behold, some documents that I had personally released on Facebook, and of course I have stated that we will utilize those platforms for special operations in the open platform that really equates to a counterterrorism style fusion center format, because all of the different agencies can look at this and examine the information in real time without the bureaucratic red tape that will often get in the way of an investigation like this. And so, the bottom line is Dockery was a SWAT officer. His dad runs the jail over in Denton. They're so corrupt. It's terrible what they were doing. And so they didn't really get into all of the stuff that they were doing, but we sent the clear message, well, hey, we know what you're doing. And these guys have, connections out there that are, really irrelevant at this point. I mean, there's too much of a movement to cover this up anymore. And so the bottom line is that went down, and I'm openly stating in a series of videos that they sent me to prison for. I mean, the initial incident that landed me into the office where Frank Dockery was, I had an evading arrest charge there. They put a social media ban on me with no relevancy to the case, which makes it unconstitutional. Okay. I went ahead and purposefully violated that probation because of the seriousness of the situation and all of the things that I talked about, besides one crucial issue, which is a judge out there that we know that was involved in this stuff. And they threw the kid out. Dockery is probably their way of throwing one of their kids out and doing it. Much like I've discussed with other people that are, working this case, that they want to try to do with me because I'm releasing this information. So it's not going down that way. We will continue to release this information and yield the arrest. And so we're moving up in this investigation. That's very important to note that, guys. And so I wanted to make that clear. And all of those videos with the timestamps that they violated me for are there as I'm stating what I'm telling her now. This is a counter-sabotage. I'm going to go there. We're going to do this. And we have yielded the results for that. We're moving forward with this now. And so that's what this is.
Okay. When you search, and I'm sorry it's so complicated for you, and I'm trying to get this done quickly for you. I know it's the end of the day, and you probably had a hard day, and I appreciate the work that you do very much. The bottom line, Frank Eric Dockery is currently awaiting federal sentencing in a jail run by his father in Denton. His dad is Chief Deputy Dockery of Denton County. Okay. There's that. You can cross-reference him with it.
And to back up, they released the same documents when Alex and I went to Washington State that I had already released that are relevant to the electronic harassment. I will put that in the description of this video, and it's a fascinating thing when you look at the timestamps there. They say they accidentally did this. Well, oops, we're accidentally about to roll these people even more after myself stating, well, hey, next time we come in, instead of the 10, it's going to be 100. And so this is where we're headed with this, guys. It's exciting.
Department of Justice search, and you will see him popped up with some arrests that happened with a task force over here in North Texas. And so we saw that Sheriff Skinner's Sheriff's Department, quite frankly, covered up this crime. We had been surveilling that information, and I personally had worked with different federal authorities on this. And I'm going on a record with this with you, so you have all of this information as an investigator from the Hood County Police, the District Attorney's Office, okay? I'm trying to give you a full scope of what you need to know. And so, and it's relevant to the case. And so, and this is all verifiable information, 100%. And so, bottom line, when Skinner's Sheriff's Department, who, of course, maybe you don't know that he's currently under investigation.
When I first came into this, I told these guys in Collin County the truth the whole time, and they just thought I was completely nuts until, now we can say, well, actually, what Eugene was talking about proved to be not only valid, but it's still ongoing. And so that's a wild ride and a crazy place to be when we really look at it for me and anybody else associated with this. And there's been children that have been involved with these things. The asset that I was working with previously, I talked with a little bit with Laura Eisenhower in a recent interview, and she had connections back to Disney and to a particular Masonic lodge up in Michigan that was connected to the O'Brien family. And that's how deep this stuff goes. And so we're weeding all this stuff out and trying to come together and find a resolution, because there has to be some sort of compassion, forgiveness, and these other things with this. But you don't get away with child rape, do you? I mean, you shouldn't. And so it's nothing I have never participated in any of these types of crimes. And the people that have are sitting there, handing out sentences for these things to people, oftentimes when they try to set them up. And so that's another story for another day. But I did want to just kind of throw that in there because it's so important. So I want you guys to get excited about this, because the way that she mishandles this by sidestepping these questions and not asking the most important questions shows an intent, certainly for obstruction of justice, just bar none. That's just the beginning. And so,
unrelated incident, which will probably lead them right back to what we're discussing today.
And by the way, I'm talking there about the Texas Rangers investigating Sheriff Skinner. You may hear me speaking with a Collin County Sheriff's deputy and saying, well, why don't you go ahead and forward the information to the Texas Rangers for me and tell them that I'm their point man on this investigation. And so here we are a couple of years later, and we were talking about Collin County, Laura and I, and all of the things, and lo and behold, not even 2 days later after I did the interview with Laura, the Texas Rangers then move in to Collin County on a seemingly unrelated incident.
Back it well. The bottom line is, he covered it up because there's a family tie with Skinner and the victim's family. Okay, and her great uncle is a man that used to be the elected sheriff in a county of New Mexico, adjacent to where Sheriff Skinner originally comes from, who is now in the county seat in Collin County. And so we see a network of these people, again, where we began this conversation, embedded within law enforcement, in DA's office. We see them at the federal level, and you can hear my work speaking with an individual formerly had been nominated by former FBI Director James Comey for his work in child exploitation, a man named Jeff Rich, who, I spoke with and gave him some information, and I think he's a good guy. The last time we really spoke, they were forwarding the information that I gave them to the Public Corruption Office, and we saw subsequent arrest to that. And so this is kind of like phase 2, and we're looking around at everybody like, well, here's all of our cards on the table. What do you guys want to do? And so, I believe that these victims need compassion. When we deal with multi-generational abuse, it's a terrible thing. And so you need to know that this has gone on since he was a child. That's probably the most important thing I can tell you. Not reporting that is a crime in and of itself. You can get into...
Right there, she should have asked me, who's the mother? What's the contact info? That's the run-of-the-mill investigative tactic by law enforcement, certainly throughout the state of Texas, even at the, guy on his regular beat in a regular cop car. This is an investigator from a district attorney's office, and so that's a problem.
With her mother about that, after you hear the recordings, that the victim clearly states that the mother does know, and if you need a recording of her mother speaking with me about it, I will furnish to you that as well if you do not make the proper contact with the victim in a lot of time frame that you can designate and I'm comfortable with. The bottom line is, with this particular aspect, is I have all this information ready for you, and I appreciate.
And this is the same way I did it last time. I said, look, I'm not here to, play chicken with these people, okay? This is, I'm going to rob the hen house, so to speak, figuratively, because we're telling them how this investigation is going to proceed. And if they don't adhere to their own, protocols and guidelines, we're watching them do this. And so it's crazy because the cover that I generate and the enthusiasm and the energy that I have is so foreign to them. I've been living and breathing and eating this thing for years, and so it's all I know at this point. It's just who I've become, and so.
Everybody there who's listening to this information, I can assure you that this is a serious situation. A member of your community who is currently in Granbury has raped his daughter as early as 5 years ago when she was 39 years old. you've been doing this for 8 years. Have you ever heard of a father who's raped his daughter rather, when she's 39 years old, or that old, or anywhere close to that old?
Sir, just continue with what
I'm asking you a question as a professional. Do you see rapes of any nature going on within a victim is that old?
Yes, sir, I have. Just go back. Everything that you have for me, and I just sent you my email address. Send that to me when you can, but go ahead and continue with what you have.
Okay, I've got that. Okay, well, typically when we do...
Now, she asked me for everything, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, and I want to be objective, okay? She said, send me everything. You're sitting there with a pen and paper still. You don't not get that mandated reporter's information off the top. It's unprofessional, at the very least.
You see, a rape that has gone on at an age level like that, it's something that has been recurring. Can we agree on that? Okay, it's not a one-time incident. It's something that's gone on previously, and that's what we're looking at in the case of Alexia. And her mom knows about this, and she's covered it up, okay? And so that's pretty much what I have to give you. That's more than enough for a district attorney's office to say, hey, what the hell's really going on with this guy, and what's this information? And I'm going to get you in contact with the victim. I'm going to make sure that her voicemail box is not full for you after I contact her. She may not answer. She's at work. She doesn't really know what's going on, and she's afraid. She's deathly afraid of facing this. She's afraid of her father. She needs your help. And I hope that you guys are good and honest people. Unfortunately, like I said, I've run into people in your position and other positions in law enforcement that are not only complicit with these crimes, but they're actively involved with these types of crimes, okay? So nobody wants to see that, and I don't mean to condescend when I say that about anybody that you work with. I also don't make any assumptions either way, and so it's very difficult for me in the position that I'm in and the things that I've seen. And, a public corruption probe is essentially the nature of some of this work that we're doing. And so, again, you can hear me speaking with Jeff Rich about that, who's FBI, but sorry I'm going so fast, but I've really been needing to get this information. I totally didn't expect a call from you back this quickly from your office. And I'm just, wow, that's great. And so I'm going to let you get in contact with the victim. And this is not a crime that can go unprosecuted if she chooses not to prosecute it. Is that correct? I mean, you're going to prosecute this. Okay. Okay, well, I hate to do that to this guy because I love these people. I don't know him personally. I know what she's been through, and I can tell you that when she cries, she sounds like an angel crying to me. And it struck such a deep chord within me. I'm not going to cry to you on the phone about it, but damn it, I could if I wanted to. Okay? And so it's hard. And I think you're just a blessing to call today so quickly, and I feel like there's a divine appointment here today. And so I'm going to forward you that information. If you need me, you call me. I don't care what time it is. If something gets messed up with this investigation with you, whatever it is, that's fine. If things get too out of line and there's somebody, I often forward things up the chain of command within a given department and watch how the information is translated, who gets in the way of it. And as I've mentioned, we've already seen this with Sheriff Skinner and had subsequent arrests. And so this is the substance of this investigation. I cannot be more clear about what I'm talking about to you today. And oftentimes we will release information publicly as a matter of holding people to accountability with these investigations, and that is my full intention with every aspect of this investigation as it pertains to you or any dealings that I have with any other law enforcement officials. Are we clear on that?
I understand that, sir.
Thank you. Okay. All right. That's fantastic. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I do.
All right.
First off, does anybody else besides you know that you're reporting this to law enforcement?
Yeah.
She said, does anybody else besides you know that you're reporting this to law enforcement? That's what she said.
Who knows?
Well, Louisville PD knows, the victim knows, the mother knows, the father knows.
How did they find out?
Well, as I just mentioned.
Why is that a problem? Why is this a problem? that this crime has already been reported to law enforcement after I just told her that I already reported it to Skinner and they covered it up?
Every aspect of this investigation is public. Okay, there are no hidden corners. This is like the sunshine burning bright as day over this entire investigation. I sent it to him.
When did you do that?
Last week.
Is there a reason that you notified him of this prior to contacting law enforcement?
Yes, because as I mentioned, I've already contacted law enforcement as it pertains to this rape. Okay, do you understand that? I personally was inserted into the Collin County Detention Facility in an anti-corruption probe, which has resulted in arrests. Okay? 214-721-401. This has been the subject of my I've known her for 25 years, okay?
So she told you?
She did tell me, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm going to furnish you some recordings of that. I'm going to furnish you one, of which there are several, and they're backed up. They're on the cloud. They're public. Okay, there's copies.
You see,
all
she
over
wanted
place.
the asset.
So,
She wanted the victim and the assets
it is what it is.
information. She wanted the assets information. She didn't want the mandated reporter's information. She didn't want to follow their own very specific guidelines in this case. I mean, it's the bottom line.
Where is Alexia now?
She's at work. She's working at Domino's Pizza in Louisville, Texas. And she lives with her mother currently, although you will see that her address is the same as mine if you do a DPS check. And, you know, we come from a background that is kind of steeped in intelligence and military ties, okay? I'm going to give you that frame of reference for some of the things that you may run into in this investigation.
What's the perpetrator's name?
I'm going to leave that up to the victim to let you know that. I will furnish you his phone number if you would like me to do that.
Sure, what is it?
Give me just a moment. Let me look that up for you. Irvin the Third. And I can assure you that any check you do on me is my cover, okay?
What is the, how do I spell your last name?
IRVIN.
And your date of birth?
H, we're in a place where we really need your help. We need you guys to get out there, expose this for what it is, get Alexia the help that she needs, because she's hiding from this self her whole life. And it's a very destructive pattern that she's in. And she's a wonderful, sweet, giving, empathic individual that just wants to love you. And it's so fucking sad what happens to the victims. I can't even begin to explain, and I know you've seen it, okay? And so I just...
Now, guys, I want to give you a frame of reference for that. It really is happening right now where people that have been embedded in this for different functions are being triggered to expose it. And so we do see that, and that's a good thing. We can put this behind us. We can, move forward together, figure out new solutions and things of that nature, because these tactics don't need to be done where you're, compartmenting someone's psyche because you're, raping them and the other things that go on. And it's terrible. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this up. I've needed to get it up. There are a number of red flags with the way that this investigator has handled this from the jump. And so I'm pleased to play the role of, hey, running circles around her, basically. And, that was the tactic. That was the method that I used. And it clearly worked, and she did clearly, again, guys, mishandled this by not following just state of Texas guidelines. And so we've notified the Attorney General's office at Kim Paxton all the way down. We'll probably get that information to Greg Abbott in a public way. And there's people out there that know what's going on and how these circles function and what's embedded in the law enforcement. There's eyes out there watching that, and there's different factions right now. Hopefully we can find a resolution to this and not go just crazy with it, because it's a very volatile situation potentially. And I think that there is a push for peace with this. You know, my position on that is, if you're doing this to kids, you're going to have to stop no matter what. And, you know, we can talk about it after that. But if you're in any way trying to insinuate that it's okay to do these torturous things to people, you're not on the same side as I am. So
it is what it is, lady.
Does Alexia know that you are contacting law enforcement today?
I think so. Yeah. She does. Yeah, and so she's hiding from this. She's hiding from herself, is what she's doing. She asked me to do this. Okay, and this is very well documented and recorded in the things that you will hear. But when it comes around to game time, she's not ready until she hears from somebody like you. Until she hears it's really sobering when you're in the kind of situations that we've been in, when somebody with a badge actually comes up and says, well, this is what's really going on. It's a reality check. And so she needs that to kind of get rid of that altar that she has, that she dissociates with. And so I don't know how much you think, sir. I don't know how much you know about things like, and let me get back on here. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, hold on. I don't know how much you know about things like theme-based programming. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Yes, it did happen.
she says, does any of this happen in Hood County? Directly after I asked her a very important question, and I clearly stated that the suspect perpetrator lives in her county. That was the reason that I called her, and the entire premise of the conversation. Okay.
Good County, that's why I called you. She was raped when she was 39 years old at her dad's house. I'm going to leave it up to the victim to that. I'm going to furnish you his phone number, and I'm going to give you a recording where she admits that it happened at his house in your county. Okay, so you've got that. You're not wasting your time. Okay. I'm looking that up.
All right, guys, that's it.